now releasing all goblins.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. They've got an amazing loyalty program and an easy-to-use and robust buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMudsta, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Watcher of the Hollow. Thanks for helping support the channel. Today we find myself, Arja, John, and Matt battling it out. And today I've decided to play my Hama Pashar dungeon deck, keeping Gilrain, Displacer Beast, Unsubstantiate, Plains, Cloudstone Curio, Ghost Quarter, and an island. Arja is playing Ashnod once more, keeping 3 swamps, Skeleton Key, Moira Urborg Haunt, Inspiring Statuary, and a Transmogrant's Crown. John is playing the oldie but goodie with the Scarab God, keeping Liliana, Waker of the Dead, a Swamp, Gisa and Geralf, Morphic Pool, Shipwreck Marsh, Liliana Untouched by Death, and Talisman of Dominance. Matt, who seems to love Mardu, is playing his Trynn and Silvar deck, keeping Command Tower, Hero's Blade, Mountain, Homura Human Ascendant, Rally the Ranks, Swamp, and a Dire Tactics. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play an island. Arja's got a Swamp for turn and is able to cast Ashnod on turn 1. John draws and plays a Morphic Pool. Matt just plays a Command Tower. I play a Plains and pay 2 for a Felwar Stone. Arja plays another Swamp and casts a Skeleton Key. He then moves to combat, hitting me for 1 with Ashnod. John plays a Swamp for turn and pays 2 for a Talisman of Dominance. Matt plays a Swamp and then casts Rally the Ranks, which as it comes in, names humans. I draw and play a Ghost Quarter, and then cast Hama Pashar. I pass to Arja after that. Arja's got a Swamp for turn and casts Scrap Heat Scrounger, and then goes to combat. He swings Ashnod at John for 1, and sacrifices the Scrounger as she attacks to make a Power Stone, and John takes the hit for 1, and Arja then passes. John's turn has him playing his Shipwreck Marsh, and he's then able to cast Gisa and Geralf, milling himself for 4 cards. He passes to Matt after that. Matt plays a Mountain, and pays 3 mana for Tymna, and passes back to me. I draw and play a Displacer Beast, venturing into the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I get to scry 1 twice, and then pass to Arja. Arja draws and plays a Swamp. He equips the Skeleton Key onto Ashnod and goes to combat. He swings his commander at Matt for 1 and loots away a Persistent Specimen, and Matt then takes the 1. In his post-combat main phase, Arja casts Inspiring Statuary and passes. John just draws, plays a Swamp, and casts a Scarab God. Matt has an Exotic Orchard for turn, and goes to combat. Tymna finds her way at Arja, dealing 3 and gaining Matt 3, and in the second main phase, Matt pays 1 life to draw a card from Tymna's ability. After that, Matt then casts Trynn and makes a 1/1 token and passes to me. I've got an island for turn, and just pass after that. Arja's got a Swamp, and then brings back the Persistent Specimen before casting a Transmogrant's Crown. He then equips it onto the Specimen. Moving to combat, Arja swings Ashnod at John for 1, and he sacrifices the Specimen on attack to make a Power Stone and draws a card from the Crown trigger. John then takes the 1, and Arja gets to loot a card, and with nothing else, he passes. John casts a Gravecrawler from his graveyard using Gisa and Geralf's ability, and not its own, and then passes to Matt after that. Matt's got a Bajuka Bog, which comes in tapped and exiles Arja's graveyard. With the ability on the stack, John activates the Scarab God to animate Arja's Moira, and puts her onto the field as a zombie token. Matt then casts a Hero's Blade, and he moves to combat. He swings a human token at me, and Trynn goes at Arja. I block with the Displacer Beast, and then Ghostly Flicker it, and a land. and as it comes in, I get to venture again. Arja then takes 4, and Matt then passes, and on his end step, I cast Unsubstantiate and bounce the Moira token into nothingness. I draw and play a War Room. Arja draws and goes to combat. He swings Ashnod at John again, looting away the Transmogrant's altar. He then plays a Worn Power Stone after combat, and then casts Bontu's Last Reckoning to wipe the board. I respond, activating War Room to draw a card, and then activating the Displacer Beast to bounce it back to my hand. With nothing else, Arja passes. John draws and plays a Phyrexian Arena. He then casts Graph Harvest and passes, remembering that he should have put the Scarab God to his hand during Arja's end step. Matt draws and plays a tap Temple of Silence, scrying 1. He plays a Vanquisher's Banner, naming Human, and then passes to me. I draw and replay a Displacer Beast, moving further into the Lost Mine of Phandelver and dealing 1 to each of my opponents. I then pass after that. Arja's land stayed tapped because of Bontu's Last Reckoning, and he just draws for turn and plays a Swamp. He has enough at least to cast an Underworld Connections onto his untapped Swamp, and passes to John after that. John loses 1 and draws from the arena, and then draws for turn. He plays a Takenuma, and then casts a Diregraph Colossus. This then allows him to cast the Gravecrawler from his graveyard, and he makes a zombie token as well. With nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt's got Hamura, Human Ascendant, and draws from the Vanquisher's Banner as he casts it, and then gets to put the Hero's Blade onto it as it enters. Matt then plays a Swamp, and passes. During his end step, I activate War Room to lose some life and draw a card. I play a tap Myriad Landscape, and then just recast Hama Pashar and pass. Arja's main phase has him casting Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and then drawing 2 after keeping both on top. He then casts a Noxious Gearhulk, destroying the Diregraph Colossus and gaining 3. He follows it up by replaying Ashnod, and then casts a Haunt of the Dread Marsh, and passes to John. John loses 1 to his arena, drawing from it, and then for turn. He plays a Soul Ring, and then recasts the Scarab God, and passes to Matt. Matt's turn has him playing a Smoldering Marsh. He then plays Shadowheart, and passes. During his end step, I flicker my Displacer Beast with Ephemerate, and as it comes in, venture, and get 2 triggers from that room. I flicker the Displacer Beast again on my upkeep as I rebound the Ephemerate, and it comes in, and I finish the dungeon, drawing a card twice. I then draw for turn, and play a Flooded Strand, and cast a White Plume Adventurer, taking the initiative, and this time going into the Undercity. I get to go and find 2 planes off the first room, and once that's done, cast a Clever Impersonator as a copy of the White Plume Adventurer. I get to venture again, and I scry 2 twice. I then pass, with Arja activating the Underworld Connections to lose 1 and draw a card. Arja's turn has him casting an Eldrazi Monument. I respond by cracking the Flooded Strand, and go to find a Mystic Sanctuary, putting on top of my library my Ghostly Flicker. Arja then plays a Razorlash Transmogrant, and he moves to combat. He swings Ashnod at me, and the Gearhulk at John. We both take the hits since we have no flyers, and Arja takes the initiative from me, going to find a swamp. Arja then plays the swamp for turn, and casts a Sign in Blood on himself, losing 2 and drawing 2. John drains everyone for 2 on his upkeep and scries 2 from the Scarab God's trigger, and then loses 1 from the arena, drawing a card, and then drawing for turn. John then casts a main phase Dread Summons, putting 6 into the X, and he gets to mill us all for 6 cards, which after we count up all the creatures, ends up with John gaining 8 2/2 zombie tokens. Going to combat, John swings the Gravecrawler at Arja for 2, and with Menace, he can't block it, so John takes the initiative. This lets him go and find a swamp, which he then plays for turn. John then passes, and during his end step, Matt casts Dire Tactics to exile the Scarab God. Matt plays an Evolving Wilds, and then plays Captain Lannery Storm, and then a General's Enforcer. Moving to combat, Matt swings Hamura and Lannery at John, who doesn't block and takes 13, and Matt gains the initiative. He also gets to go and find a basic from the Undercity, and in the meantime, cracks his evolving wilds while he's at it to find one for the field. With nothing else, he passes to me. My turn has me playing up Plains, and I then hardcast Sarah's Emissary, naming creatures as it comes in. I then swing the Displacer Beast at John, and the 2 White Plume Adventurers at Matt. Archer responds by casting a Shoulder's Edict, choosing non-token creature, and I sacrifice my Clever Impersonator, while John sacrifices the Gravecrawler, and Matt sacrifices Hamura, which in turn flips him. Matt and John can't block because of the Sarah's Emissary anyway, so they take the hit, and I get the initiative back, moving into the trap room and getting 2 triggers of it because of Hama Pashar. I deal 5 to Arja and 5 to Matt, and then pass turn. Arja's upkeep has him sacrificing the Haunt of the Dread Marshes to the Eldrazi Monument, and he draws for turn. He plays a Swamp, and then casts Gutterbones, and equips it with the Transmogrant's Crown. Arja then follows up with an Idol of Oblivion, and he moves to combat. He swings Ashnod and the Noxious Gearhulk at John, and sacrifices the Gutterbones, making a Power Stone. With the creatures connecting, John gets taken out, and after damage is dealt, Matt then flashes in Sigrid, God-favored, and exiles the Noxious Gearhulk. In his second main phase, Archer then activates the Idol of Oblivion to draw a card, and then plays and activates an Endless Atlas, drawing again. He wraps things up by playing a Mimic Vat, and passes to Matt after that. Matt draws and plays Chainer Nightmare Adept. He then discards a Plains from his hand to cast Delina from his graveyard, and gets to equip her with the Hero's Blade as she comes in. Moving to combat, Matt swings out at Arja, and Delina rolls an 8 to make another copy of Chainer going at Arja as well. Before moving to damage, Arja activates the Underworld's connections, losing 1 to draw a card, but doesn't find an answer and just dies. After that, Matt passes, and I sacrifice my Myriad Landscape to go and find 2 basics. I venture further into the Undercity, drawing 2 as I complete the room, and then draw for turn. I then cast a Tomb of Horrors Adventurer to complete the Undercity, and my first trigger gets me a Glasspool Mimic off the room, which I then use to make another copy of, which I have come in as another copy of the Tomb of the Horrors Adventurer, which then restarts the Undercity again, going to find me 2 basics. The second final trigger then gets me an Agent of Treachery, which as it enters, gets me Hamura's Essence from Matt. Moving to combat, I'm pretty confident I have it, so I swing all out at Matt, but unfortunately after some math, he's still alive at 1. In my second main phase, I then cast Cloudblazer, which gets copied twice from the Tomb of Horrors Adventurers. This has me drawing 6 cards and gaining 6 life, and with nothing else, I pass to Matt as I discard down to 7. Matt draws and plays Utter End and targets Sarah's Emissary. She gets exiled, and he then casts Silvar. Going to combat, he swings his entire board at me, and Delina's on-attack trigger has him targeting Chainer. He rolls, and gets to make 2 copies of Chainer, and we then move to blocks. I stop what I can, but still take 22. However, it's not enough to take me out, and Matt knows that he's done for on the lethal crackback, and scoops it up so he can move to another game. Game review time. This game was 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 3 seconds, which is kind of a fun lineup of 1, 2, 3. I have to say I think the initiative is probably one of my favorite mechanics released in the last 5 years. It basically changes the way the table does things, it changes the dynamic of the table, it forces people into combat when they wouldn't normally do so, and it just adds a really fun level to the game. I'm really hoping we see more support for it. I like that we got to see Ashnod again, Arja's refining the deck more and more, and I'm seeing more and more of what the deck wants to do. The Power Stones help fuel basically either equip costs or other things, and cards like Inspiring Statuary allow him to tap them to help cast spells from his hand. It's fun to see in action, and he's got so many cards that can recur themselves from the graveyard that you never quite know what's going to happen next. John's Scarab God deck is pretty much what you think it was going to be, which is a lot of zombies and hoping to have his commander out on his upkeep. He only got that 1 trigger however, but if he'd been able to get to his next turn after the Dread summons, we were in for a world of pain. As I said before, Matt certainly loves his Mardu decks, and Silvar and Trynn is another great example of what he likes to play. It focused on legendary humans, and as you saw, there's a lot of really good ones. One of the most surprising cards in his deck, and one that I forget often has been printed, was the Hamura. When it gets flipped, it's huge. Giving your creatures +2/+2 in flying and fire breathing is a massive way to pump your board easily for a lethal swing. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.